Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pearce. Check out some new merch. Whoop, whoop. Thank you to Chris Jones, who has designed some designs that I've whacked on some t-shirts and mugs and all that kind of stuff. You can check, there's a link in the, always has been a link in the description below to the various attempts I've had to put things on clothing and whatnot. It's a Redbubble link below is the one you want to click on. Anyway, that's by the by, you don't need to know that. Unless, of course, you want to know that. In the meantime, let's go to the Frontline update for today, the 11th of March, 2024. If you don't know what the lines on my map mean, please pause the video and have a look at the key on the screen at the moment. Right, as you can see, lots of red, different shades of red pins for you to suggest that the Russians have been making the gains on most of the front line, although it's mainly according to Syriac maps, just the one source. We'll start up in the northeast where we've actually got an Andrew Perpetua changed to his map. We're going from Kupiansk to Svatova to Crimea, and actually it's further down, so no movement in Klishchiivka area from any of the mappers, no movement along that long Luhansk, Kharkiv into Luhansk area, until we get down to just that salient towards Terny and Torska, Yampolivka area and Terny, where the Russians have made what looks like some small gains, maybe catching up with some of the other mappers for Andrew Perpetua to some degree in that area, but still a little bit of a disagreement between the mappers there. So yeah, a bit of a movement in a place where we haven't seen any movement for a few days. Nothing around Bakhmut, which I think is massively significant, because actually Ivaniska's been really tough, and for there to have been no change for at least 2 days, maybe even 3, I think it's good news. Yesterday, no reports reported that geolocated footage confirms Russian advances inside Ivaniska, and that would be in line with what, well, actually most of the mappers really have, but particularly Syriac maps there. And that's actually just around, yeah, so that is exactly in that area. Gaining control over the area north of the T0504 road leading into Bakhmut. Heavy fighting there continues. That's just this kind of area north of the road. But anyway, that's what we had from Syriac maps on their previous map change there, but still no change in Klishchiivka. There is obviously a lot of activity around these parts, although it does seem to have calmed down, as I say, near Klishchiivka. Then when we come down to Avdiivka, some very small Russian gains, as JR has done. Thanks, JR, for the mapping update, by the way. Just around this Tonyenka area, just some small gains for the Russians there, and then further to the south in Pervomaiske. And I think this is really good. I think for the Ukrainians, it shows that there's continued stabilization along this front, as the Russians may be looking elsewhere for their main areas of attack. They've done what they needed to do there. No report says, an officer of the 59th Brigade confirms our latest reports the Avdiivka direction has somewhat stabilised. This has come from yesterday. And ammunition indeed has arrived. And that's something that I've talked about over the last few days, that it seems very different in terms of that stabilisation, but also the footage we are seeing indicates that the Ukrainians are using a lot more artillery ammunition than they previously were. Then when we go to Pervomaiske area, Syriac map says during the last 3 days, Russia has reactivated the advances from the axis of Vuhledar and entered into the locality of Pervomaiske from the north. As can be seen, Russian forces are applying the same strategy applied several weeks ago in the southern part of this locality, which forced the withdrawal of the Ukrainian army from the southern Dachas. A lot of words to suggest that the Russians have just moved a little bit in the Pervomaiske area, coming round and attacking Pervomaiske from the north, the other side of the lake, coming around from there, and that might help to secure Russian control over all of this remaining land of Pervomaiske there. So we'll wait to see if that happens, or whether the Ukraine is pushing back, or whether it has happened at all. And as we come further to the south, we come on to Andrew Perpetua showing around the Krasnohorivka area that the Ukrainians have made some gains there, just south of Krasnohorivka and close to that big old mine area that swapped hands a number of times. Remember, that was a site of the Russians doing this big attack up there, and it was when the Ukrainians had just received cluster munitions, and what was it, Donbass? Donbass Mishnah, I think it was. That is another Telegram channel, because I've just reported that the 13th has just died, apparently. A Russian huge Telegram channel with 220,000 followers that I often refer to. He's just been reported as having died, possibly in the strike on a command and control ship in the estuary to the Dnipro River. Nonetheless, here this was a site where that Telegram channel chap died, and he was a drone unit commander, and he was walking down this kind of tree line, and the Ukrainians hit it with cluster munitions. It was one of the first big uses of cluster munitions, and that was just at this period where the mine had been attacked, swapped hands a couple of times, and the Russians appear to be further north of there. According to Syriac maps, you can see there's quite a difference between these two maps. If Andrew Perpetua is showing that actually the Russians being pushed back a little bit there and are back into the mine area, then that's a significant difference, because he doesn't have the Russians inside those first streets of Krasnohorivka. Or if they are, it is a grey zone, right? They only substantially control this mine, and everything between there and the southern area of Krasnohorivka is just very dynamic. Things being hit, people being hit, Russians maybe taking some losses in those fields, indicating that they don't really control them. Anyway, we'll wait to see. Now, from Syriac maps, we're going to come down to Novomykhailivka, situation southwest of Donetsk. The Russian army took control over the northeastern plantations of Novomykhailivka. Meanwhile, clashes with the Ukrainian army are taking place in the northern warehouses of the locality. Now, this is fairly serious, I would suggest, because as we come down here, past Mariinka, where it's been quite stable, past Pobjeda, actually, there is something about Pobjeda. Let's talk about this, because this is from... this is from today. So maybe this has hit. Let's have a look. I think this has. There's a change there. It might have come in after. Yes, so this has come in after JR's done the mapping update. So this is a very recent change for the mapping to suggest that the Russians control this area now, as according to Syriac maps, as well as a little bit further down to the south there. And this is a claim that the Russian army is continuing to increase the buffer zone around Pobjeda, that's here, while at the same time troops took control over the new plantations located on a high ground which overlooks Hayarivka. So that is going to be challenging, because that gives the Russians, if they have, so what height is that? It's 143 meters, 147, and down here it's going down to sort of 120 meters as it comes down to the river area, which is on the lower ground. This is higher ground, and if the Russians control that, let's have a look at what they might be looking at as they look over Hayarivka. So you can see that it all looks a little bit downhill there, and if we come to Hayarivka and look, so it starts going up as you get to Hayarivka, because as you can imagine, it's going to be lowest around where this sort of river is traveling down. So now if we look back the other way, you can see it's very much, well, not very much, I mean, it's an incline, but it is a useful high ground for the Russians to take control of. So this is Syriac map saying that the Russians have taken control of all of this area here, and right up to there, and so that will challenge the Ukrainians in Hayarivka. So something that they'll have to look out for. If that has indeed happened, it could just be that the Russians have moved into there and been hit and don't control it. These kind of things are the bread and butter of what Syriac Maps claims. Right, so that is happening there. And Pobjeda, there is the claim that if we go back to the map, sorry, not that one, this one, quite a large area of field to the north of Pobjeda. This whole area here is under control of the Russians, as according to Syriac map. So definitely challenging there, as we've just heard. and that's just fresh from Surat maps. But what they'd previously said is that this area north of Novomykhailivka is now under control of the Ukrainians, and that's quite significant because this area is really well fortified by the Ukrainians. So if the Russians do take this area, it's they are taking it off Ukrainians who have decent tree lines and decent positions in these fields, and that then will help the Russians to continue to take more of Novomykhailivka and move through there. Although there's quite a big difference between what Andrew Perpetua states is the case in Novomykhailivka and indeed around Novomykhailivka and northeast of there, and what Surat map says. So some major disagreements there. I don't quite know what's going on. I guess we'll see as the days go by. And then as we come down round the dogleg past Vuhledar, where there's a lot of activity going on at the moment, the Russians have taken some pretty heavy losses in terms of equipment around here, and that could have been in their attempts to take this place, Shevchenko. So we again go to Surat maps here. The situation southeast of Donetsk, the Russian army made new advances northwest of Shevchenko, increasing the buffer zone around the village. As mentioned previously, it is important to keep an eye on this front as future activities will increase significantly as the encirclement of Vuhledar tightens, depending on the outcome of the battle for Novomykhailivka. Okay, so that is to say some advances there. And the attempt would be to join up with activities going on north. I mean, essentially, they want this whole area from through Konstantinivka down to Vuhledar, like this whole area to the east of that road under their control. But ostensibly, they want the whole of Ukraine, right? But they definitely want Kurakova, and so they're going to be pressuring for there. And it's about joining all this up around here. I think this is far more important than what is going on around Avdiivka for both sides, and I think you'll see the Ukrainians concentrate on trying to defend around here, as maybe you can see in Krasnohorivka, and the Russians really try and throw everything at taking as much land here as possible. This is, I think, more operationally significant than not necessarily from the Avdiivka that has been taken, but from going further west from where they are at the moment. Pokrovsk is obviously super important, but that's a big old trek there, and that would take a lot of effort. Here, if they can join things up sensibly, the Russians definitely have an achievable goal, and the Ukrainians will want to be really aware of what's going on there. Right, then as we move to the west, we have Nazi Shevchenko one we already have. So to the west we have, that's Robotyne. Actually, we have another one, which is Haliapale. This is it. This is what I wanted to see. Right, so the Russian army continues to advance at Haliapale. On that front, taking control over a series of plantations southeast of Chervone. Remember that this front was reactivated at the end of February, and that is expected to be a front to divert Ukrainian troops and not an offensive front towards Haliapale. So yeah, it's more diversionary. We have a lot of aerial, so a lot of artillery activity around here. Haliapale gets, has been for a long time thoroughly battered by artillery. And here we can see around or towards Chervone, the Russians may have made some gains there. Not crazily significant, but something to watch out for. And then around Robotyne, where I've recently been saying the Ukrainians have done a really good job of keeping the Russians at bay. There are some small Russian gains here, according to JR, but I have a feeling now we have much more significant gains that have happened since he's done the mapping update. So the Russian army has managed to set a foothold again inside Robotyne after the Ukrainian army withdrawal during the previous hours. So as you can see, that's a sizable chunk of the land surrounding the southwest of Robotyne, as well as coming into Robotyne. So if we look at that on Surat maps, you can see here's the main yellow road coming down there, and they've pretty much gone. If I draw this on for you, you can see that it really is fairly significant. So what this looks like is something like that, and all of this land now being under Russian control. Now, if that's the case, then they have taken control of this extensive trench network in the area that Andrew Perpetua on his live stream was talking about, and the Ukrainians had full control over that area. It would be really interesting if that is at all true, but it might just be an attack trying to get around that trench line by going north. Maybe they don't control it, or maybe the Ukrainians have withdrawn from there. That would be quite a big thing, because it took a lot of effort to take these trench lines back, but they have swapped hands a number of times. Here, no report said yesterday, so this is a little bit out of date. I've marked part of the central area of Robotyne as contested. This area, kill zone for Russians, has now been stormed several times by Russians from the west, causing fighting to break out. The latest attempt was repelled, but more recent claim from Syriac Maps is that is now under Russian control. So it's definitely something to watch out for, because the Russians could be putting the Ukrainians on the back foot there. I mean, it's something I've been expecting for a long time, but the Ukrainians have managed to hold on tenaciously to that area. And that's pretty much it. The breaking news update I just showed you was a strike on a ship, a command and control ship, on this kind of spit here, lodged into the sand, and acting is a ship that may have been pushed into that as a result of the Novokakhovka Dam breaking or exploding, and then all that water pushing the boat into there. So from June last year, there's been a boat lodged there, and it appears that the Russians may well have been using that as a command and control boat to sort out activities in the region, maybe have some radar, electronic warfare equipment on board. I don't know. It's a big old cargo ship, and that's been hit by the Ukrainians and largely destroyed, I would have thought. And with that, apparently there are rumors that General Toplinsky perished in that, but I don't think those rumors are substantiated. But also there are rumors that the 13th, the Telegram military blogger, very ultra-nationalist military blogger and guy serving in the armed forces, he certainly seems to have died. Whether he died in that incident, I don't know. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe and share. Really appreciate all your support. You members are just wonderful people. Thank you. And Slava Ukraini. Yay. Good stuff. Till the pit. Speak soon.